Nation of Fit and 10, welcome to day 21. 3 days through, 3 weeks through, if you can believe it, 30% in, and we still got another, 7 weeks to go, right? 7 weeks. And, yesterday I talked about I don't know if you want to call it the science. I mean, I don't know really what you want to know exactly, because we didn't really even talk about biochemistry. Like, we could talk about our physiology and biochemistry of digestion of foods, how fats digest versus, say, how carbohydrates and proteins digest. We could really get into it, I guess, but I thought probably I would just leave it there, and then if you want to know more, ask me specific questions, and then hopefully I can answer it. I mean, if I'm not really sure, then I'll just tell you I'm not sure. Surely I only know as much as I do, and that's that. So, moving along here with more questions. So this person writes, this is continuing from yesterday. I'd also like to understand the data in the macro portion. I've been both way under and over on different days, and I'd like to understand that better. Before this I was avoiding fats as much as possible, but now I'm having them a lot more, and some days too much. Is underdoing it okay? Or does it affect the results? I'm pretty sure overdoing it is really bad, but I'd like to understand that more. More information on heart rate, resting heart rate, upping heart rate throughout the day, and if that can help with progress, as well as how many steps play a role in overall success. Okay, so a lot of questions here. So let's go back to the original question, which is basically some days you're doing under, some days you're doing over. So, we can talk about this in more depth, but ultimately I really like to keep this simple and just try to meet your macros. And I realize this is not really answering your question, but I really want you just to try to build up some consistency over time. So, for example, what I tend to see with some people, actually quite a few people in the challenge, and this might be due to people maybe being not hungry enough, but sometimes I feel like, because I see this a lot with people, they'll eat, like, they'll be under, and so their total calories will be 100 or 200 under what they're supposed to have, or maybe more. And I feel as though maybe sometimes, I could be wrong, although I'm sure sometimes this happens, people like to err on the side of caution and have a little bit less. But I would still encourage you to have it all. Okay. Now, obviously, if you have more of an energy deficit, you're gonna lose more weight. You're gonna chew through more energy. But again, we want a happy medium here, and we don't want to get to the point where, because ultimately we're digging every day. That's what we're doing. We're creating some level of deficit every single day. And that builds over time, right? Like, your first day of deficit, is a little bit, then the next day, and 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 the next day, so long as you're consistent and you keep digging this hole. And as you dig this hole, it's sort of like there's a lot that's going on, right? We're chewing through fat. We're depleting glycogen, although that probably happens more so it's depleting and then replenishing, but as you chew through, probably those glycogen levels are getting lower. Okay, glycogen just being the way we store carbohydrates in the liver and the musculature in the body. So that's kind of one thing to think about. But there's so many facets to it. As you diet, this is a stress on the body. And this isn't just it's just a stress that the body's going through. And it's the same as it is on day 1 as it is on day 70 or day 100 or however long you're going to diet for. No, this is an accumulated stress. All right, so you've got to think about and so those are just two things. You've got to think about this as a process. All right, so it's not like trading things in for the day. It's if I eat, and I'm not suggesting that you're thinking this, but it's if I eat a little bit less today, I'm going to burn more fat. You can't look at it like that. You've just got to look at it as an overall process. okay? And typically what I like to do with people when I diet them over long periods of time is I like to undulate calories. I like to go up in calories and come down in calories and go up in calories, come down in calories to give the person a break, to teach their body to be more energy inefficient, and to make it more sustainable, right? You got to have breaks. You got to have what you could call diet breaks. Anyways, I kind of digress a little bit here, but getting back to your, the thing about avoiding fat as much as possible. Okay, so that you didn't get fat. I know this is what you used to do. Again, this is just an over calorie consumption. Again, you can get fat from any of the 3 macros. Hardest macro to get fatter from is protein, but it can still happen. Okay, if you eat enough protein, you will. But ultimately, it's the overall calories, right? So, now, again, there are nuances with this. I've mentioned this in videos before. Between, for example, so for protein to be converted to fat, it's first got to be converted to sugar. There's a lot of steps it has to go through. But ultimately, again, if you eat enough of, say, a macronutrient like protein, which is very, very hard to turn to fat, if you eat enough of it, that will happen. You will go through what's it called? Gluconeogenesis, which is just a fancy word for saying we're going to take protein and we're going to make it into sugar. There's going to be some overflow. There will be some fat gain if the overall calories are high enough. Okay, so in order to get your calories high enough, you have to have enough of, protein and or fat and or carbohydrates. You have to have enough of that, right? So like we talked about ketogenic diet, no carbohydrates. You can get fat off of that if you eat enough fat and enough protein, I guess, for that matter, right? You can go no carbohydrates. You can go no fat and just go carb. You're not going to feel good, by the way. And I wouldn't suggest doing that. It's not going to be healthy for you. But you could do that. You could just do carbohydrates and protein. You're still going to get fat from that if you eat enough calories. Okay, so you've got to eat enough of these macros to get that overabundance of energy, and then you're going to gain some fat. Again, coming back to this, what if you're over? What if you're under? Don't try to make it up for the next day. Don't try to overeat the next day if you're under, or vice versa. Just try to build consistency. We want to be consistent. We don't want to be shooting all over the place. We just want to build some consistency. Okay? And in the case of this challenge, it's just about building that consistency. What else? Okay, so, or does it affect results? I'm pretty sure overdoing it is really bad, but I'd like to understand that more. Yeah, I mean, listen, if you've been in a deficit, on average over, a span of enough time, and you have one meal. So let me just give you an example. So, I'm going to use an extreme example here just to emphasize my point. So, like, for example, after a bodybuilding, if you're familiar with bodybuilding, people have to get into very, very low body fat levels. Okay, so like very, very low, like 5% low, which is ridiculously low. Lower than you think, okay? A lot of people will see people 8, 9, 10%, and they'll say, oh, that person's 2%. No, 5% is like ridiculously low, and that's very, very hard to get to, and you will look ridiculous if you're 5% body fat. Anyways, to get to that point, you have to go through a lot of this. Essentially, it's calorie deprivation. And obviously, there's a lot of training and cardio and a very high protein diet. But what you're doing is you're depleting all your glycogen for one. You're depleting your fat levels. You are setting your body up for overcompensation in terms of fat gain after that period. Now, that's not to say that if you go and have one fat meal, you're going to just gain all this fat. No, in fact, you're going to have a little bit of time there where you're really not going to gain that much fat, at least not initially. A lot of this food's just going to go towards, filling up muscle glycogen. And part of that glycogen is, glycogen is just carbohydrates and water essentially. Okay, it's mainly water actually. But the muscles can also take in fatty acids as well. So you can store glycogen and fat in the muscle if it's depleted enough. So, using this example, if you're depleted enough, there's going to be some reserve area that's not going to be fat, where you can house some of this stuff. So where am I going with this? Basically what I'm saying is if you dig a hole enough and then you overcompensate for, if you have one meal or you have a day where you eat, it's not really going to affect you. You will see your weight go up because you're going to hold more water, probably more water in the muscle than anything, but this is not fat. Okay, this is called just like you've depleted water from your body, okay? Mainly in the form of glycogen and possibly in the form of fatty acids from the muscle. And you're just replenishing those. Okay, so if anything, your body would actually be read as lower body fat because you'd have more fluid in the muscle for sure. So, when you go through deficit, you're depleting these types of things, and then you kind of create reserve area for if you overconsume. So, this is why if you diet for a while and then you have like one, high calorie meal, and then you get right back onto it and you diet again for, like if you've been in a deficit for a while, and then you give yourself a bad meal, and then you go back to it and you stay in a deficit and you give yourself a bad meal, you're never really going to see those bad meals attribute anything to the body. So again, it's all relative to how long and how much have you been in a deficit versus how long and how much have you been overcompensating or doing too much, right? So if you eat 4 meals a day and you do, just you could look at it this way: you do 4 meals a day, you do over 7 days a week, right? So that's 28 meals a week. Times 4, that's whatever, 112 meals in a month. Well, there's more days, there's more than 4 weeks in a month, but you understand what I'm saying. Right? And then all of a sudden you have one meal, that 113th meal is pizza and ice cream. Okay? And you have like 1,500 calories. You're not going to see that. Okay? You really won't. So, maybe a month isn't, depends on the amount of deficit that you're making too. So I'm just trying to give you a picture here, and I'm really kind of getting into the weeds. But again, I just want to encourage you to follow, be as consistent as you can and get as many calories as you can in. This is important, okay, for long term, for making you feel good, and for staving off future cravings. Okay, part of the reason we get these cravings is because, sometimes, like if you do extreme dieting, like if you go very low calories, you are quickly going to get starving, and then you're going to want to binge. And fly on my desk. Sorry. Nobody feels bad about that, but I find flies really annoying. Let's just leave it there for today, okay? I'm at 13 minutes. This is terrible. Okay, I'm going to get myself back on track here, try to keep these videos a little bit more organized, and I'm going to try not to ramble so much, okay? But really what I want to say with these questions is I'm going to try to answer them as best I can. And then if this leads to further question, then just ask me that. Just like write me and be like, you talked about this, it didn't make any sense to me, or can you elaborate, or whatever, okay? Okay, let's get the message of the day. Message of the day on this day 21. All right, so you may believe that it takes talent or special genetics to do well in this challenge. Maybe you believe that. But here are 5 things, but I'm telling you it doesn't. Here are 5 things that require, and there's something else I want to say on that, but I'm not. So maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. Here are 5 things that require 0 talent. Following a system, like the Fit in 10 system, like everything I ask you to do, including your numbers. Being organized. It's pretty easy. Well, maybe not for some. Effort, just, the amount of trying that you put into this. Being prepared, okay, that I guess goes hand in hand with being organized. And most importantly, well, maybe not most importantly, but it's pretty important, positive attitude, right? Staying positive, okay? 5 things that require zero talent that are gonna help you immensely in this program. Because that's really what it's about. It's about putting in that daily effort, okay? All right, listen, I apologize for getting into the weeds there. I don't really even know if I explained anything at all. I will upload this video because I'm doing it late at night. And I'll probably watch it, and then I'll probably wish that I didn't post it because I just feel like it was probably a mess. Anyways, positive energy, positive vibes. Believe in yourself, for the love of God. Give some gratitude, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Just be consistent with your numbers and make sure you get everything in. Less is not better. Less is not better, okay? See you guys.